Welcome back to Cracking the Code of Spy Movies, the show where we decode the secrets, the symbolism, and the spycraft hidden inside your favorite espionage movies, from early classics to modern blockbusters. And today, we're diving into one of the most important early British spy movies ever made, The Spy in Black, a movie that helped shape spy cinema before James Bond was even a concept. Hi, this is Dan.
And Tom.
And today we conclude our black and white focus on spies. We did Spy versus Spy, how a Mad Magazine comic shaped spy cinema, and we did The Spy in White. Today we conclude this triumvirate with The Spy in Black from 1939, which was released in the U.S. as U-Boat 29. Now, Valerie Hobson is in both of these movies.
Exactly. Now, this is a pre-Bond, pre-Cold War espionage trope setter. And even in the pre-World War II propaganda cinema that we understand it, this film feels surprisingly modern. Yes, you're on the submarine. The way they dress and some of the way they talk is a little bit different, but this movie does feel like it could have been made today. And this is also a hugely important movie because it was directed by Michael Powell, one half of the legendary Powell and Pressburger team, who would later revolutionize British filmmaking. The movie is based on the 1917 novel The Spy in Black by J. Storer Clouston. It's a movie that we've referenced numerous times on our channel here, and we finally found the right time to decode it because of Spy vs. Spy and The Spy in White.
All right, let's break down the plot, the spy techniques, the hidden themes, the filmmaking style, and how this movie quietly influenced the DNA of future spy movies, including Bond, James Bond. Now, the movie stars Conrad Veidt and with Sebastian Shaw and Valerie Hobson. Now, Hobson had been in about 25 movies already by the time this one was filmed, including one of our favorites, Q-Planes, 1939, the same year. So let's look at the historical context here. We'll set the stage. The movie was released in 1939, literally on the brink of World War II.
Well, and that timing's everything, because Britain was facing the growing threat of Nazi Germany, and films like this were subtly preparing audiences for the reality of espionage warfare. It centers on German espionage efforts inside Britain during World War I. So the action from this movie takes place during World War I, not World War II.
Yeah.
And we don't see that in a lot of spy movies. Most of the spy movies we see are from World War II going forward.
Yeah, and so we have a fascinating kind of double historical layer here. The story is set during World War I, but made right before World War II, and this gives the movie a strange prophetic tension. Audiences watching in 1939 would have felt like they were seeing history repeat itself, and that's part of the movie's psychological power here, I think.
So let's do a quick synopsis of the plot. The story follows Captain Hardt, a German U-boat commander sent to Scotland on a covert mission. His assignment is to gather intelligence that would help the German submarines destroy the British fleet at Scapa Flow, one of the Royal Navy's most important naval bases. It was the home of the Grand Fleet.
Yeah.
Now, when he gets there, he's supposed to meet Fraulein Thiel, who is a German agent embedded in Scotland. And Scapa Flow is a large, sheltered natural harbor located in the Orkney Islands off the northern coast of Scotland.
Now, you mentioned Orkney Islands. I've been to the Orkney Islands on a British Isle cruise one time. It is beautiful, fantastic. And, by the way, Tom, they make one of my favorite single malt scotches in the world there, Highland Park. I mean, it's terrific. All right.
Okay, that's a good one to be a favorite of.
Yeah.
All right, now, for Hart to succeed, he relies on a network of German spies who are embedded inside of Britain. That's where this story becomes a fascinating chess match of deception. Yeah. And the first time I watched this, I was deceived, right?
Yeah.
Right. So from his sub, the U-29.
You have to pay attention.
You do. So from his sub, Hart gets ashore with a motorbike that was on the sub. And this is a nice detail. He takes the motorbike with him into Scotland. So it's brought out while Hart is still on the sub, and it shows us how they plan for these missions. Now, we've both said you have to pay attention, especially for the first 15 minutes or so of this movie. And I thought I was.
Yeah.
I still was deceived.
Yeah, it's easy.
There's this woman, Anne Burnett, who's staying in this home, and she's supposed to take over one of the schools on the Orkney Islands. And pay attention, there's a great setup going on here. And there's an actress who's in this chauffeured car. She plays a rich woman named Mrs. Sedley.
Yeah.
And she is played by Helen Hay. Not Helen Hayes, Helen Hay. It's a very small, a very important role, and she just nails it.
Yeah, she does. She's great.
Yeah, now then, Hardt does encounter the school teacher named Fraulein Thiel, who is secretly working for German intelligence. At least he thinks. But, and this is classic spy storytelling, she has complicated loyalties.
Or does she?
Or does she? I mean, her character is an enigma wrapped in a complex layer of opaque saran wrap or something.
Wow, I don't know what you said there.
She's got a fascinating character, and trying to figure out who she is interesting.
Yeah, and her relationship with Hardt slowly becomes emotional, which of course complicates the mission. Well, somehow emotions and romance must find their way into spy movies, and you like that, Tom.
If it's done right, I'm fine.
Yeah, now Hardt certainly is drawn to this woman, and she, well, not so much to him. She is.
Well, you got to remember, Dan. He's been in a submarine, and he's got a woman that he's talking to. She's got on stockings, and he comments about her stockings.
And she's beautiful.
So I can understand it.
Now she is the one in charge, according to Hart's orders. So yeah, you got to pay attention to that. So, but I must say, the movie is unique because what makes this movie stand out is that it humanizes enemy spies. That was extremely bold storytelling for the time. The plot is about World War I, but is being made on the brink of World War II. So this is bold and risky for sure.
Well, and you talk about the fact that it's about World War I. I love how they bring the realities of the people involved in the war and the things they were dealing with. I mean, there's a running trope about not being able to get butter or meat.
Yeah.
And they talk about rationing, right? Rations in war are real, and these type of things heighten the reality of this movie. Now, we here in the United States, it's been a long time since we've dealt with rationing. But during war times, it's a reality, and they bring it out.
Yeah, that was done well. And so let's look at the spycraft of this movie, Tom.
Okay, so spy techniques used. It uses methods that would become standard in the spy movie genre. We see coded messages, false identities, hidden communication networks, and psychological manipulation. And then one element of this movie pops out at us. It shows us how espionage is not glamorous.
Yeah.
It's quiet, methodical, and often lonely. And again, more grounding in reality than what we see in later spy movies to come, especially the James Bond or Mission Impossible movies.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. It's really a smack in the face with how real this is portrayed. I mean, Hardt, a German U-boat commander, spends much of the movie navigating secrecy and paranoia, themes, of course, that later spy movies, especially Cold War spy movies, would fully embrace, like 3 Days of the Condor, The Spy Who Came In From the Cold, The Eagle Has Landed, Eye of the Needle. I mean...
Yeah, and for me, of that list, the big one here is The Spy Who Came In From the Cold. Because in that movie, Lemus is totally isolated, as Hardt is here, even though he thinks he makes an alliance.
Yeah.
And we do see it in Eye of the Needle and the other ones, but for me, that line is very closely drawn to The Spy Who Came In From the Cold.
Yeah, you do really get this feel of the loneliness of spying and espionage in this movie, which is well done. This movie also establishes the idea that spies operate within civilian environments, schools, villages, social gatherings. I mean, we've covered many movies that later adopt this, like Secret Mission we just did. This concept of spies operating among civilians and the potential civilian collateral damage becomes a spy movie staple. All these spy movies we just mentioned are very solid spy movies. Now, I have to say, I watched one the other night, the 1987 spy movie, The Trouble with Spies, with Donald Sutherland, Ned Beatty, and Ruth Gordon. Wow, that's a great cast. Supposedly it's a comedy action movie. Okay, here's what it really is. It's a terrible movie. Skip it. That's our review. All right.
Wait.
Now,
Sutherland, Beatty, and Gordon are in that, and it's bad.
yeah.
That must be a terrible script.
Skip it. All right, moving back to The Spy in Black. Let's do a quick character analysis because this is critical to the movie. And we're just going to do a couple of characters here. First, let's look at Captain Ernst Hardt, Conrad Veidt.
Yeah, now Hart is fascinating because he isn't portrayed as a villain in the traditional sense. He's the spy, he's the main guy the story's about. And like we said, there are many humanizing elements here that we get even in what we would think of as an enemy spy. Conrad Veidt is exceptional here as Hart. And this may be one of my favorite movie roles ever because of Veidt's exceptional work here. And Dan, you and I often talk about facial expressions, and Veidt has a million of them. And I think that's because he had a long career in silent movies before he did this one. And you can tell with how expressive his face is throughout the movie. And he shows that he's disciplined, intelligent, and deeply patriotic, oftentimes just through his facial expression. And that complexity adds realism and moral tension. Yeah. And we're going to see moral tension and moral dilemma in almost every spy movie we look at, because in reality, it would be natural. It's good versus bad. And it depends on which side you're on as to who appears to be the bad guy.
Yeah, Conrad Veidt, like you said, his facial expressions were just impeccable.
Round up the usual suspects.
As we will see, Conrad Veidt, not too long after this movie, in one of the best movies ever made, Casablanca, 1942, where he plays Major Heinrich Strasser. He was first-rate in that role and helped make it such a great movie. And there was one point in this movie where Hart says to someone,
"We are at war. Perhaps you forget that, as I did for a while. You're English, I am German. We are enemies."
I like that better.
And it simplifies everything.
"You are English and I am German, so we are enemies." And this is a revealing line in a lot of ways. And one way is that you almost feel like he feels he's out of control, that the powers that be decided we are enemies, so we are. But
I might not be your enemy in another setting.
Right. It's like that in a lot of wars, right? The people generally don't want war. They're just regular people, want peace. Anyway, all right, speaking of Hart, when we first see him entering the Keeler Hof Hotel, right at about the 3-minute mark into the movie, his entrance is so powerful and dominating that you know immediately this is someone to watch out for. One of the best entrances in an early spy movie ever. Simple and direct. He's self-confident. He has presence. And Conrad Veidt was a talented actor, making each role he was in believable. You mentioned the silent movies. He was in the 1920 The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari and The Thief of Baghdad in the 1940s and others. He's just good, always. Now, let's look at Fraulein Teal. She's arguably the emotional center of the movie. She represents...
Yeah, but she's very complex because her center is, I don't know, bifurcated, trifurcated. I'm not sure how you would say it.
Yeah, I don't think she's centered necessarily, but, I mean, in a lot of ways she is, but she is an interesting character. Now, we're talking about Fraulein Teal here, which is, again, you have to pay attention in the movie. She represents divided loyalties, country versus conscience. The moral dilemma is set on a plate for us here. Valerie Hobson is, as always, spot on perfect. Now, note in the credits, though, that Valerie Hobson plays the character, the schoolmistress. And it's listed as that for a reason.
Yeah, a very good reason.
And that internal conflict becomes a blueprint, of course, for later spy characters who live double lives or who just question the morality of what they're doing for their country. Hobson's role is key to this entire story, of course. And she brings out a lot of the moral ambiguity in the movie. So she's excellent.
Yeah.
Keep your eye on Valerie Hobson.
Yeah, I'm a big Valerie Hobson fan. Now, one other character I want to call out is a very small role, and it's the role of ship's engineer, and it's played by Hay Petrie.
Now look, we cannot keep up this pace much longer.
It's murdering my parents.
Yeah.
It's kind of a little bit comical, but if he wasn't the model for the character Scotty on Star Trek, nobody was.
I can't change the laws of physics. I've got to have 30 minutes.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
When I'm
That's what I
watching
thought,
that,
too.
I'm like, that's Scotty.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, part of it's he's got the Scottish accent and everything, but we're breaking up and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
All right, so that's some of the acting talent. So let's move on to the filmmaking techniques and how Michael Powell executed them. He was the director. He's very stylish for the time here. His use of shadows and confined spaces. A submarine's a good place to get confined spaces.
Yeah.
But he's got this suspenseful pacing that foreshadows film noir and later spy thrillers. Now, we mentioned this technique in our recent episode on Secret Mission, and there are many spy movies to come that employ these devices.
Yeah, the lighting in this movie is fantastic. And you should pay attention to that because that was superior in every shot.
Yes.
Now, I think the U-boat sequences are especially impressive. The claustrophobic atmosphere heightens this tension and reinforces the psychological pressure that the spies operate under. And it really makes the viewer uncomfortable. So you're watching it, he's like, oh, okay. Now, in Chicago, we have the Griffin Museum of Science and Industry, and they have the U-505. That was the U-boat captured in World War II by Admiral Gallery, who, by the way, lived next door to my mother in those days. And anyway, we have been aboard this sub, and the claustrophobia is real. Until you've been aboard one of these things, you have no idea what these submarine personnel go through. Whew. I mean, you could hardly breathe in this thing. It takes a special kind of person.
I don't know how they do it.
Yeah.
And if I was a submariner, I would lose it being that hemmed in for as long. I mean, they could be down for a long time. That would drive me nuts.
Yeah, right. And you're underwater with depth charges blowing up around you. No. And I have to give a shout out to the production designer, Vincent Corda. The Kieferhoff Hotel, for example, is spectacular. The apartment of Anne Burnett, very well done. The smoke rising in the fireplace, the oil lamps, all very, very well done. The schoolroom was simple, but what we would expect for the time. So, great. Now, the underwater, I have to say, the underwater submarine shots are weak. That's the weakest shots in this entire movie. Getting off the sub into a boat is, well, kind of set-like. And I was wondering, anyway, how you mentioned the motorbike he took ashore. I was wondering how he got the motorbike to the island, since we could not see it in the rowboat at about 22 minutes into this movie. Maybe a different boat brought it or something. I don't know. But
Dan, it's movie magic.
yeah,
Get
there you
on
go.
with
All right. Our willing suspension of disbelief. All right. But all else is done pretty well. There are details, the boats, the waves, the shores, all very well done. And Vincent Corda later did The Thief of Baghdad, 1940, and The Longest Day, 1962. So he was talented, and it shows here. And for the most part, I think the cinematography is crisp. We mentioned the lighting. It's something to be noted throughout the movie, and just so well done with shadows, interior oil lamps, daylight and nighttime. So hats off to Bernard Brown, the cinematographer. Fantastic stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we like to talk about music sometimes, and we should recognize the music here as being a very good part of the storytelling.
Well, why would it be so good, Dan?
Yeah, it was well done. It really enhances the scenes, which I love when music enhances the scenes as opposed to dominating the scenes. It adds suspense, it adds wonder, and a sense of determination.
Okay, it's got all that. How could it possibly have been that good?
Miklos Rosa is the composer.
Well, that would explain it.
He has some talent. He later went on to be involved with Ben-Hur and was the composer for Double Indemnity, Spellbound, El Cid, The Lost Weekend, and lots more.
So he's a slacker.
Yeah, he only had 28 nominations for awards. He won 13 times, including Oscars for Spellbound, A Double Life, and Ben-Hur. So, okay, the guy's got some talent.
He didn't get an award for this one, but he was also the composer on Eye of the Needle. We called out Rosa in our episode from that 1981 movie.
That
He
was excellent.
composed for a long, long time.
Yeah,
and
he was excellent.
Quite successful.
Excellent. So note that in this movie as well. And I want to say the dialogue here is excellent as well. There are some great lines and great delivery by these fine actors. When Captain Hardt, for instance, now Hart, H-A-R-T in Scotland, tries to boss around Anne Burnett, she tells him,
I haven't yet been told what I'm to do here.
You'll be told tomorrow.
Not tomorrow. Now.
What are your orders?
I beg your pardon?
Your orders, Captain Hardt.
To report for duty to Volantile? To obey all her orders?
Exactly. Now pick up your motorbike and go to bed.
all right, who's in charge here?
Pick up your motorbike and go to bed.
You got this U-boat commander standing in front of this woman, Fraulein Teal, and she basically slapped him in the face saying, get your motorbike and go to bed. You listen to me. I mean, this is a great exchange here, and clearly a device to say who is in charge. And you can see in his eyes as he looks her up and down right after this, he's not happy. And this was a simple way to show it in 2 seconds. That was well done.
Yeah, now there's another great line, and there's an innocent person in this movie who realizes that Hart has on a German uniform.
I say, that medal ribbon, I don't seem to recognize it. What is it?
The Iron Cross. Second class.
Second class. Then you must be a prisoner of war.
No. You are.
Oh, dear.
That's a great way, again, who's in charge here at this point?
Yeah.
Hart's in control of that situation.
Yeah, that was great, crisp, short dialogue that is impactful. Now, Hart must try to execute his plan to sink 15 of the capital ships, maybe with the help of a British naval officer with a grudge against the service, Ashington, played by Sebastian Shaw. Teal tells Hart why this officer has a grudge. A naval destroyer crashed. He was drunk, and Hart knows about this incident. These are just examples of good writing, good spy planning, and good execution. Note the clean, crisp exchange of words, ideas, plans throughout the movie. Well done.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you sit there and you watch this dialogue and how Teal tells Hart about Ashington and watch their faces as they're going through it, it's like it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Until it doesn't.
Yeah. All right. There are a few twists in the plot that create more tension and some hints and scenes as to what is happening or may be happening. That might not be so obvious, but you pay attention to this. For instance, towards the end of the movie, someone adjusts the engine communications device, the engine order telegraph, which is what it was called, EOT.
You're talking about on a ship.
On a ship. Now, that sends a signal to the engine people. He changes it to, and it's very clear on the screen, finished with engines. A very intriguing message there.
Yes, and he's sending that message to that engineer that we mentioned earlier.
Very, very well done and meaningful part. Now, let's do a shout out to some of our listeners who recently gave us feedback on our recent podcast episode. So big shout out to @ShantyHealer, who gave us positive feedback on our 20 Things You Missed in Dr. No, John Moss and Bernard Abels for their feedback on 20 Things You Missed in You Only Live Twice, and Ellen Crawford 3398, Mark Knight, Carl C. Epler, Pietro Rossi, and Daniel Can, who gave us feedback on Has James Bond Lost His Identity? That episode. Thanks. Keep the feedback coming, and we can produce even better episodes for you. Thank you.
We really, really appreciate that feedback. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about what Michael Powell does in directing this movie, because he avoids simple action spectacle. Spectacle is not what this movie is about.
No.
He avoids it. He focuses on mood and character psychology. What state of mind you're in at any point in this story, kind of a thing. This psychology is something modern spy movies still rely on sometimes. Think about Black Bag.
Mm-hmm.
Though the trend established by Mission Impossible and James Bond brought spectacle and action center stage.
Yeah.
Now, that's the mood and the psychology. But Dan, are there any hidden themes in The Spy in Black?
I don't know if they're hidden, but they're there. One of the movie's biggest contributions is showing that espionage blurs moral lines. So you do have this moral ambiguity we mentioned. We get a full dose of moral ambiguity. No one is purely heroic or evil in this movie. Everyone believes they're serving a greater cause, and we see the human side on both sides of this in this movie. It's unique for the time.
Oh, and I think it makes for a great movie because you can empathize with all the different characters.
Yeah, right. And they do a great job of sucking us into that. Now, tied in with this is the concept of patriotism versus humanity. That's always a big issue. It's a big issue today with everything that goes on in the world. This movie questions whether loyalty to country should override personal morality. And they do a very solid job of showing this as real, with conscience questioning going on that feels very authentic and real. And we also get a good dose of the isolation of espionage. Spies live alone, emotionally cut off from normal relationships, a theme that, again, becomes central in later spy storytelling. And again, when we get to Bond, this concept of spying is softened to a degree. It is still a serious business, but we see the spying storytelling as more of an escapism for us as the viewers, as opposed to something that we see as a very real snapshot of spying reality.
Now let's take a quick look at how The Spy in Black had influence on spy movies to come and the genre in general. I mean, that's one of the core things we do here at Cracking the Code of Spy Movies.
And it certainly did have impact. A lot.
So you can draw a direct line from this movie to later British spy movies, especially the way it influences through tone, realism, and the narrative structure. So Night Train to Munich, The Third Man, The Ipcress File, Funeral in Berlin, 49th Parallel, even From Russia with Love. Espionage, undercover deception, and double agents are here.
Yeah.
And lots more. This movie establishes several elements that would later appear in Bond movies, as well as Cold War espionage movies. I'm thinking sophisticated enemy spies, emotional complications during missions, spy networks hidden in everyday society.
Yeah.
The emphasis on intelligence over action, at least in some instances, and sophisticated yet simple plots. We sometimes see spy movies get very complicated plots.
Yeah, it's not always the case, but
this one is fairly simple, yet it tricked me. And I watch a lot of spy movies.
Yeah, it was really, really well done.
Yeah, now, even the mixture of romance and espionage feels like an early prototype of Bond storytelling. You know, I don't like unnecessary romance for romance sake in a spy movie.
Right.
And here, we don't get unnecessary romance. So I think that's really, really nice.
Yeah, there's actually none of it. There may appear to be some, though. So, again, you got to pay attention. So from 1939 to now, you got to look at what still works. The pacing here in this movie, The Spy in Black, is slower than modern audiences expect and enjoy. But the suspense still holds up remarkably well. And of course, we know Alfred Hitchcock was the master of suspense. And he had The Man Who Knew Too Much, 1934, out by this time, as well as The 39 Steps, 1935, Secret Agent, 1936, Sabotage, the same year, and The Lady Vanishes in 1938. So each of these may have had a slight influence on The Spy in Black as well. And this all still works in modern spy movies.
Well, and you just said the pacing is slower than modern audiences. This is one of the rare movies because it doesn't have a pacing problem to me. Yes, it's methodical to build up the suspense.
I agree. It
but
flows
you don't
nicely.
sit there going like, come on, looking at my watch or anything.
No, it flows very well. I agree. I think it's great. All right. In general, I think The Spy in Black really helped establish several of the storytelling and the stylistic templates that we do see in later British spy movies, especially the psychological espionage. We talked about morally complex spies, the grounded intelligence network. Many movie historians recognize The Spy in Black as part of the foundation of serious British cinema, which is pretty impressive. Specifically, The Spy in Black influenced major spy genre elements that became recurring British spy movie trademarks, like emotionally conflicted spies, espionage as psychological warfare, sympathy or understanding toward enemy agents, realistic intelligence tradecraft, more gritty and down and dirty and lonely. Suspense built through atmosphere rather than action, and plenty of the moral gray areas rather than clear heroes and villains that we see later in Bond movies, for example. So The Spy in Black helped push British spy cinema towards intelligent, character-driven espionage storytelling, which feels modern, actually. And that's pretty cool that this was done in 1939.
I want to go back to that spectacle thing, or this movie's refusal to rely on spectacle. I think that actually makes it feel more timeless, which is a strength in it. All right. Now, we also like, besides just saying what genres and stuff it influences, we also like to find some fun or little-known facts about a movie. And
yeah,
here,
it's always fun.
We've got some good ones. This movie helped launch Powell's reputation as a serious visual stylist type of director.
Yeah.
And its sympathetic portrayal of German characters was controversial at the time, to be sure.
Oh, yeah.
This movie came out, as we said, right at the doorstep of World War II. Having a sympathetic view of the Germans here was interesting.
Yeah, and Conrad Veidt's casting here was politically powerful. This German actor, Conrad Veidt, played Captain Hardt, but here's the irony. Veidt was openly anti-Nazi. He fled Germany after Hitler rose to power, and he often played sympathetic or honorable German officers in Allied movies. His casting gave the movie here authenticity while subtly reinforcing this anti-Nazi messaging. And we looked at Hogan's Heroes. We did a whole episode on Hogan's Heroes. We had the same kind of thing there, where a lot of the main characters in Hogan's Heroes were Jewish actors and had a history in World War II, some whose relatives were in concentration camps and so on. So here you got Veidt playing this German, and he's an anti-Nazi, he's all this kind of stuff. So that was kind of good to find out.
Yeah, and that's one, if you didn't know his backstory, you wouldn't get this, but see if that influences how you view his performance in this movie.
Yeah, yeah. And then we got the submarine shots. You see some of the interior shots, they look very tight and so on. And then there are a couple other shots where they're sitting at a table and it looks kind of like there's space and room. And I don't think you had that in a submarine, certainly not the one we saw at the Museum of Science and Industry. So, you see those.
It's a very confined space.
Yeah, you see some of those shots in the movie, they think, okay. But that's probably just, hey, it's the studio set limitations and whatever they had to do, shoot the shots. But I thought there was authentic period radio equipment there. The radio and signal devices that were used by the spy characters were surprisingly accurate for World War I technology. Many were borrowed or modeled from actual military equipment. So kind of helped create this realism that you rarely see in spy movies of the 1930s. So that was kind of cool.
And what I like about that is you talk about attention to detail. And that is a great attention to detail. Easy to skip past.
Yeah.
But when you take the time to make sure you get something like, here's the stuff we would have had then, that just helps add to the strength of the movie.
Yeah. There's one scene where someone does get chloroformed. Remember that scene, Tom?
Yes, I do. And, it's amazing how fast that happened.
Yeah, the person is knocked out in 5 seconds. So, like many movies of the era, the chloroform worked almost instantly. And in reality, chloroform takes several minutes of sustained inhalation to render someone unconscious, and it is extremely dangerous. I mean, the quick collapse was a cinematic shorthand, really, that was already common in the 1930 thrillers and would later become a spy movie cliche. So pay attention to that scene.
Well, you have to love the cliches like this, where it's like, okay, it's not really based on reality, but most people would think, oh, chloroform takes you out right away because that's what you always see. And This was one of the first movies I ever remember seeing them try chloroforming somebody.
Yeah.
You have to pay close attention to this chloroform scene.
It's good.
Yeah. There's a shadow placement across one of the actor's face. I don't want to give this away.
Yeah.
Look at the lighting.
Fantastic.
Look at the tight framing that helps add to the creation of claustrophobia, and how there's a gradual movement towards the moment of incapacitation. This reflects an early Powell-era suspense technique. It's more psychological than action-driven, which might be why I love this movie so much.
Yeah, that's a fantastic scene in this movie. Now, there were some reports that the uniform accuracy was carefully researched. There's other reports that say, hey, they made some mistakes with the symbols and so on. We're not going to dig into that kind of thing because there's a lot of uniforms in this movie. As a viewer, it looked pretty darn good. And you're not going to know if, was that a 1930s or was that a 1940s World War II insignia? It's like, we're not going to do that. All right, so we're going to wrap this up. Where does this movie rank in spy movie history? I'm going to call it foundational. It's not flashy, but it helped invent the psychological spy thriller, and I think it has a major place in the spy movie world.
And without movies like this, the evolution of British espionage storytelling might look different today, because this was a very influential movie in how they make spy movies. And without it, who knows what we'd be watching.
Yeah, so okay, we're going to ask, should you watch this movie? I think you kind of have a hint here. If you're a spy movie fan, for me, The Spy in Black is essential viewing. It shows the genre before gadgets, before Bond, and before Cold War paranoia dominated storytelling. It's about an hour and 20 minutes long. Definitely worth a watch.
Yeah, and it reminds us that espionage movies have always been about identity, loyalty, and the cost of secrecy. So absolutely watch this movie if you haven't seen it. It remains one of my all-time favorite spy movies.
Wow. All right. That's a wrap. This has been Dan.
And Tom.
If you enjoyed this episode, follow and subscribe to Cracking the Code of Spy Movies, share it with fellow spy fans, and leave us a review. And join us next time as we decode another hidden gem or important topic from the world of espionage cinema. Until next time, trust no one except us.
Thanks for listening.